The sound began inside the stone walls, though no one agreed on when. Some said it was in the early spring, when the snow still clung to the monastery roof. Others swore it had been there longer, a hollow knocking, faint, like water dripping where no water ran. Brother Matthew, the youngest of the monks, heard it most often in the corridor leading to the old library. It was not loud, just a soft, irregular tap that seemed to travel along the walls. He would pause in the silence, listening. The others walked past without stopping, as if they had trained themselves not to notice. The library itself smelled of old parchment and damp wood. Candles hissed when they were lit, their smoke crawling across the vaulted ceiling. Matthew liked the library best in the mornings, when the cold air had not yet seeped through the stones, and the silence felt clean. But lately, even in daylight, he could not read more than a few pages without glancing upward at the ceiling beams, listening for the sound again. One night, he lingered there long after the others had gone to their cells. The fire in the brazier was low. The air was sharp with the scent of tallow and dust. He thought he heard something beyond the usual knocking, a breath, drawn slowly through the cracks between shelves. He told no one. The monastery was a place of prayer and silence, and complaints of noises in the walls belonged to childhood, not to men who had given their lives to God. Yet the rhythm of his days began to change. At mealtimes, while the others ate bread and broth in silence, he found himself staring at the far end of the hall, where a dark door led downward into the unused crypts. He had never been there. The door was swollen with age, its wood blackened by centuries of smoke and damp. And still, he imagined he heard the same faint tapping beneath it, as though someone waited patiently on the other side. A week later, one of the older monks collapsed in the cloister garden. The man was carried to his bed, but Matthew overheard whispers in the corridors. The dying monk had muttered about footsteps outside his chamber, though none had passed. When asked who it was, he replied only, "The hollow man." No one explained further. The others prayed longer in the chapel that night, their chants stretching well past midnight. Matthew tried to join them, but the rhythm of the sound distracted him. A slow, deliberate tapping that seemed to echo beneath the hymns. He began sleeping less. The narrow bed in his stone cell felt colder than before, the blankets stiff with damp. In the small hours of the night, when all else was still, he would hear the sound travel from wall to wall, like knuckles rapping gently from inside the stones. Sometimes, it moved toward his door and paused, as though listening. One evening, he carried a candle into the library after complaint prayers. The shelves rose high around him, casting long shadows. His breath smoked faintly in the cold air. There it was again, the sound. Closer this time. Not knocking, but something like fingers brushing over the wood of the shelves. He followed, candle trembling in his hand. Every turn between shelves felt narrower, the books leaning toward him, their cracked bindings whispering as though to warn him away. Finally, he reached the farthest corner, where dust lay thick on the floor. There, the sound stopped. But when he raised the candle higher, he saw the dust had been disturbed. Small marks, almost like prints of bare feet, scattered in uneven patterns leading toward the back wall, a wall of stone, solid and unbroken. The next day, Matthew tried to speak of it, but the prior silenced him with a single look. His hand, pale and shaking, rested on Matthew's shoulder longer than necessary. "There are things," he whispered, "we do not bring into the light." That night, Matthew dreamed of the hollow door at the end of the hall. In the dream it opened easily, and behind it stretched a narrow passage leading into endless dark. Something moved there, slow, patient, waiting. He woke with the taste of earth in his mouth. Days blurred. The sound grew bolder. Sometimes it rang from the beams above the chapel during prayer. Sometimes from beneath the flagstones of the refectory. The monks never spoke of it, yet their eyes were heavy, and their steps slowed, as though they too had been listening all along. One stormy evening, Matthew was tasked with carrying candles to the crypts, though no one had used them in years. The key turned reluctantly in the lock, the iron scraping against rust. The door shuddered open. A breath of air came out, thick with the smell of wet stone and something older, something faintly sweet, like flowers long dead. His candlelight showed a stairwell spiraling downward. The walls glistened with damp. And there, unmistakable now, was the sound. Not faint, not distant, but echoing steadily from below. Tap. Pause. Tap. He descended. The flame shook in the draught. Shadows clung to the walls, stretching long as he moved deeper. At the bottom, the corridor spread into a low chamber lined with stone coffins. The air was heavy. The sound came from the far corner, where a section of wall looked darker, the mortar cracked. He stepped closer, heart slowing with each beat. The knocking stopped. In the silence, he heard it clearly for the first time, not stone, not wood. It was the unmistakable sound of someone inside, drawing their nails gently across the other side of the wall. The candle guttered. For one suspended moment, Matthew thought he heard his own name whispered there in the dark. And then the flame went out.